Velthar stepped off his shuttle with disgust already written across his face. The Galactic Council space station was supposed to be a place of order and dignity, but the human section smelled of something he couldn't identify. Food, maybe. Something cooked with spices and heat. His people, the Kalri, consumed nutrient paste in silence. This was barbaric. The human ambassador waited at the docking bay. Junho was his name, and he smiled widely when he saw Velthar. He smiled like an animal showing its teeth. Velthar felt his skin crawl under his ceremonial robes. "Welcome, Ambassador Velthar. We're so excited to have you here," Junho said, extending his hand forward. Another primitive gesture. Velthar knew about handshakes, touching another being's appendage for no practical purpose. He touched Junho's hand briefly, feeling the warmth of human skin, then pulled away quickly. "Let us proceed with the evaluation," Velthar said coldly. "I have many species to assess this cycle." Junho's smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew warmer. "Of course. We've prepared everything for your review. Can I offer you something to drink? We have water, tea, coffee, or some fruit juice?" "Unnecessary," Velthar replied. He pulled out his data tablet and began recording. "Commence with diplomatic protocols. The human embassy was chaos. That was the only word for it. Other species maintained quiet, organized spaces with proper documentation and sterile environments. The human area had plants growing in containers, real plants with soil and water requirements. There were images on the walls showing landscapes and people, decorations, pointless decorations. Worse, there were humans everywhere, and they were all doing something different. One female sat at a desk, talking into a communication device while simultaneously typing and drinking from a cup. She laughed at something the person on the other end said, laughed while working. Velthar made a note. Lack of professional focus. Another human walked past carrying a stack of papers, whistling a tune. Whistling, making noise for entertainment while performing duties. Velthar's antennae twitched with irritation. "This way, Ambassador," Junho said, guiding him down a corridor. "We'll start with our cultural presentation, then move to technological displays and finish with our military credentials." The cultural presentation was worse than Velthar imagined. They showed him videos of human gatherings, festivals they called them, thousands of humans packed together, making noise, moving their bodies rhythmically to sound patterns, music and dancing. They explained these activities with pride. "We have over 10,000 distinct cultural celebrations across Earth," Junho explained. Each region developed unique traditions, foods, art forms, and social customs. "Inefficient," Velthar muttered, making notes. "Fragmented social structure. No unified cultural protocol." Junho tilted his head. "We see it as diversity. Our differences make us stronger." "Differences create conflict," Velthar corrected. "Advanced species achieve unity through standardization." A younger human entered the room carrying a tray. "Ambassador Junho, I brought those snacks you requested." She set down a plate with various colored items. Some appeared to be plant material, others were clearly processed foods. "Thank you, Hana," Junho said warmly. He turned to Velthar. "Captain Hana will be your military escort tomorrow. She's one of our finest officers." Velthar studied the female. She wore a formal uniform, but her hair was styled in a way that served no functional purpose. Her face showed expression, warmth in her eyes when she looked at Junho. Emotional attachment between colleagues, another mark against them. "Will that be all, sir?" Hana asked. "Yes, thank you. Enjoy your evening." Hana smiled at both of them and left. Velthar watched her go, noting the casual way she moved, the slight bounce in her step. No discipline, no rigid control. Captain Hana seems informal for a military officer, Velthar observed. Junho picked up something from the snack tray and ate it with his fingers. "She's off duty right now. We believe soldiers need time to relax and be themselves, makes them better at their jobs when it matters." Velthar made another note. Military personnel lack constant professional bearing. The technology presentation showed promise, at least initially. Humans had developed faster than light travel, advanced medical techniques, and quantum computing. But even here, Velthar found flaws. Their ships had windows, actual transparent sections where crew members could look outside at space. When he questioned this design choice, Junho explained that humans liked to see where they were going. They liked it. design choices based on preference rather than pure efficiency. Their medical bays included recreational areas. Patients could watch entertainment programs, receive visits from family, and choose their meal options. Velthar's people healed in optimal conditions. Controlled lighting, measured nutrients, isolated recovery. Humans wanted comfort over optimization. By the evening, Velthar had compiled a long list of failures. He sat in his assigned quarters, reviewing his notes and preparing his preliminary report. The space station provided him with a standard room, but he could hear humans in the adjacent quarters. They were talking, laughing about something. Through the wall. He could hear their joy through the wall. He typed his report with sharp, precise movements. Humanity presents as a species lacking fundamental civilization requirements. Their emotional displays suggest poor impulse control. Their cultural fragmentation indicates inability to achieve species-wide unity. Their technological choices prioritize comfort over function. Their military appears to value individual expression over collective discipline. Preliminary recommendation: humanity requires at minimum 50 more solar cycles of development before reconsidering advanced council membership. A chime at his door interrupted his work. Velthar opened it to find Junho standing there with another human, an older male with gray in his hair and kind eyes. "Ambassador Velthar, I apologize for the late visit," Junho said. "This is General Taesung. He commands Fortress Sejong, where we'll visit tomorrow. He wanted to meet you personally." The general extended his hand. Another handshake. Velthar touched it briefly. "It's an honor, Ambassador," Taesung said, his voice deep and warm. "I've heard your species has the most disciplined military in the galaxy. I'm looking forward to showing you our forces and learning from your expertise." Flattery. Obvious flattery. Yet the general's face showed genuine respect. Humans were skilled liars, Velthar decided. "I expect your facilities will be adequate," Velthar replied. Taesung smiled. Not the wide, toothy smile Junho had, but something smaller, more knowing. "I think you'll find them interesting. We've prepared full demonstrations, combat drills, strategic simulations, technology showcases, whatever you'd like to see." "I will observe your standard operations," Velthar said. "Performances can be rehearsed. I want to see reality." "Fair enough," Taesung agreed. "Reality it is. We'll pick you up at 800 station time. Dress comfortably. It'll be a long day." After they left, Velthar returned to his report. He added a final note. "Military leadership displays concerning casualness. General Taesung lacks the bearing of a proper warrior. Tomorrow's inspection expected to confirm inadequate military standards." He transmitted the preliminary report to the Galactic Council and prepared for rest. Tomorrow would be simple. He would observe the disorganized human military, document their failures, and recommend rejection of their council application. Then he could return to civilized space and forget about these emotional, chaotic creatures. As he lay in the sleep pod, he could still hear humans in the distance. Someone was playing music. Actual instruments creating sound waves for no purpose except enjoyment. He covered his auditory sensors and tried to rest. Tomorrow he would prove that humans were not ready for the galaxy. Their army would be the final evidence he needed. The shuttle ride to Fortress Sejong took 2 hours. Velthar spent the time reviewing his notes and preparing observation categories. Captain Hana piloted the craft herself, which seemed unusual. Surely a military officer of her rank had subordinates for such basic tasks. "Do you enjoy flying?" she asked during the journey. "Enjoyment is irrelevant to transportation," Velthar replied without looking up from his tablet. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I love it, especially near the moon. The way Earth looks from here, that blue and white against the black. It reminds me why we do what we do." Velthar glanced up. Through the window, he could see Earth in the distance, exactly as she described, a sphere of colors suspended in darkness. He felt nothing looking at it. "Sentiment has no place in military service." "Maybe," Hana said softly. "Or maybe sentiment is exactly why military service matters." Before Velthar could respond, the fortress came into view. He had expected something crude, perhaps adapted from old space stations or hastily constructed military installations. What he saw made him pause. Fortress Sejong was massive. It orbited the moon like a small city, with multiple rings rotating at different speeds. Solar panels stretched out like wings, and defensive platforms dotted its perimeter at precise intervals. The architecture was clean, geometric and undeniably impressive. "Home sweet home?" Hana said with clear affection in her voice. The docking procedure was flawless. Automated systems guided them in while human controllers verified every step. When the shuttle doors opened, Velthar found himself in a pristine landing bay. The floor was spotless. Equipment was organized and labeled. Personnel moved with clear purpose. General Taisung waited at the bay entrance with 2 other officers. He wore a simple uniform without excessive decoration, his posture relaxed but somehow still commanding. "Welcome to Fortress Sejong, Ambassador," Taesung said. "This is Lieutenant Dae Hyun, my tactical officer, and Corporal Minji, our chief combat engineer." Dae Hyun was young, maybe 30 solar cycles, with eager eyes and a quick smile. Minji was older, female, with strong hands and a practical expression. Both saluted Velthar, which seemed unnecessary. "Shall we begin the tour?" Taesung asked. They started in the residential sections. Velthar expected military barracks, rows of identical sleep pods with minimal personal space. Instead, he found small private quarters for officers and shared rooms for enlisted personnel. Each space had personal touches, photographs, small decorations, even plants in some cases. "Your soldiers live in comfort," Velthar observed, making notes. "This suggests softness." "It suggests we value their well-being," Minji replied before Taesung could speak. The general glanced at her but didn't reprimand the interruption. Another sign of poor discipline. The mess hall was worse. Long tables where soldiers sat together eating various foods and talking freely. The noise level was significant. Laughter echoed off the walls. One group was celebrating something, their voices raised in a song. In a military facility, singing. "Mealtime is important for morale," Taesung explained. "Soldiers who eat together fight better together." "Kalri soldiers consume nutrients in private," Velthar said. "Efficiency is maintained through individual focus." Daehyun spoke up, his voice respectful but firm. "With respect, Ambassador, we tried that approach in our early military history. Soldiers became isolated, depressed. Combat effectiveness dropped 40%. We learned that humans need social connection to function at peak performance." Velthar made a note. Military doctrine based on emotional needs rather than logical optimization. The training facilities were more impressive. Massive rooms with adjustable gravity, temperature, and atmospheric conditions. Soldiers ran through obstacle courses that seemed designed to break bodies. Velthar watched a squad complete a climbing exercise that required ascending 50 meters of vertical wall while carrying equipment. "All personnel complete this monthly," Taesung said. "Standards are non-negotiable." "What is the failure rate?" Velthar asked. 5% fail on first attempt. We retrain them until they pass. No one stays at Fortress Sejong who can't meet physical standards. They moved to the armory, row after row of weapons, each maintained perfectly. Minji explained the maintenance schedules, the inspection protocols, the ammunition tracking systems. Everything was accounted for. Everything was precise. "Impressive organization," Velthar admitted reluctantly. Minji smiled. "Thank you, Ambassador. I take pride in my work. Pride. Personal satisfaction in duty. Another emotional response where pure efficiency should exist." Yet the armory was the most organized military space Velthar had seen in any species' forces. The medical bay continued the pattern that confused him. Advanced technology combined with soft elements. Healing pods with entertainment screens. Recovery rooms with windows looking out at space. A doctor explained their treatment philosophy while showing him their trauma units. "We can save 98% of wounded personnel who reach us within the golden hour," the doctor said. "Better than any other military in the galaxy." "And the entertainment systems?" Velthar asked, pointing at a screen showing some kind of story. "Healing isn't just physical. Mental recovery matters too. A soldier who wants to live fights harder to survive." That evening, Taesung arranged quarters for Velthar near the command section. The room was comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. He could hear activity through the walls again. Humans moving about, talking, living. He went for a walk, observing the fortress during off-duty hours. What he saw disturbed him more than anything else. In a common area, soldiers gathered around a large screen. They watched some kind of sporting event, cheering and groaning together. Their uniforms were casual versions, comfortable rather than formal. Some ate snacks, some drank beverages. They looked like civilians, not warriors. In another section, he found a small gym where soldiers exercised voluntarily. After duty hours, they pushed their bodies through effort that wasn't required, making themselves stronger by choice. One female soldier ran on a machine, sweat pouring down her face, her expression showing pain and determination. A group sat in a quiet corner, reading actual paper books. Others played games, moving pieces on a board according to complex rules. Some just talked, sharing stories and laughter. In a small room marked chapel, a soldier knelt before symbols of human religion, her head bowed in prayer. Velthar watched through the open door. Belief in supernatural forces seemed primitive, yet her face showed peace. He found an observation deck where several soldiers stood watching Earth through the massive windows. They didn't speak much, just stood together, looking at their home world with expressions Velthar couldn't fully interpret. Longing, maybe, or love. One older soldier noticed Velthar watching. He nodded respectfully. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "It is a planet," Velthar replied. The soldier smiled. "It's more than that, Ambassador. It's what we fight for. Every person down there living their lives, never knowing how many times we've stood between them and danger. That's what makes this job meaningful." Velthar returned to his quarters with more questions than answers. The fortress was organized and efficient. The technology was advanced. The standards were high, yet the soldiers remained emotional, social, and individualistic. They maintained their humanity even in military service. He tried to write his daily report but found the words difficult. What he had expected to find did not match what he had seen. The humans were disciplined but not rigid. They were efficient but not cold. They were warriors who remained people. General Tae-sung had mentioned full combat demonstrations tomorrow. Velthar decided to reserve judgment until then. Perhaps under pressure the cracks in their system would show. Perhaps when tested their emotional nature would prove a weakness. He rested uneasily that night, the sound of human voices somewhere in the distance. They were singing again, a slow melody that carried through the metal corridors. Despite himself, Velthar found the sound less irritating than before, perhaps even slightly pleasant. The combat training arena was enormous. Velthar stood in an observation booth high above the floor, looking down at what appeared to be an entire city district recreated inside the fortress. Buildings, streets, vehicles, and obstacles filled the space below. General Tae-sung stood beside him, drinking coffee from a ceramic cup. Another human habit that Velthar found simultaneously strange and somehow appropriate. "We'll start with basic drills," Tae-sung said, "then escalate to complex scenarios. Feel free to stop us at any point if you have questions." Lieutenant Daehyun operated the control systems from a nearby console. He pressed several buttons and lights activated below. A squad of soldiers entered the arena, 12 humans in tactical armor carrying various weapons. "Squad Delta, begin standard protocols," Daehyun said into his communicator. What followed was textbook military precision. The soldiers formed ranks, moved through formation changes, executed weapon drills with synchronized timing. Velthar watched carefully, noting the spacing between soldiers, the speed of their movements, the smoothness of transitions. "Adequate," he said after 15 minutes. "Any species can train soldiers to follow patterns." Tae-sung smiled slightly. "True. Shall we see something more interesting?" Daehyun pressed more controls. The arena transformed. Walls slid into new positions. Obstacles appeared from the floor. Holographic civilians materialized, running in panic. Gunfire sounds erupted from hidden speakers. "Squad Delta Urban Combat Scenario 7. Live fire authorized. Hostage situation in progress. Multiple armed hostiles. Civilian casualties unacceptable." The change in the soldiers was immediate. They broke from formation, moving independently but somehow still together. Hand signals flashed between them. They split into 3 groups without verbal orders, each taking different approaches to the buildings. Velthar leaned forward. This was different. One group scaled a building wall using handholds that seemed impossible to grip. Another breached through a ground floor entrance with controlled explosive charges. The third circled to establish perimeter security. All of this happened in less than 30 seconds. Inside the buildings, holographic hostiles appeared. The soldiers engaged with precise fire, each shot deliberate. Velthar noticed they never fired if a civilian hologram was in line behind the target. They adjusted angles, waited for clear shots. took harder approaches to avoid collateral damage. Building 2 is compromised, one soldier reported through communication channels. Copy. Switching to Plan Delta, another responded. Plan Delta. They had multiple plans. They adapted to changing conditions without waiting for orders from command. The hostage room was the most impressive moment. 4 armed holograms held 6 civilian holograms in a central space. Impossible approach angles. Multiple lines of fire. Standard doctrine for most species would require sacrificing at least one hostage. The human soldiers went through windows simultaneously from 3 sides. Flashbang grenades first, blinding and disorienting. Then precise shots while still airborne before landing. All 4 hostiles down in less than 2 seconds. 0 hostages hit. Scenario complete, Daehyun announced. Time 3 minutes 42 seconds. Hostiles eliminated 16. Hostages rescued 6. Civilian casualties 0. Friendly casualties 0. The soldiers regrouped in the arena center, breathing hard but controlled. One female soldier helped another adjust his equipment. They talked quietly, reviewing their performance. Your assessment? Taesung asked Velthar. They followed training well, Velthar said, but his voice lacked certainty. Rehearsed scenarios prove little. Fair point. Daehyun, activate random generation mode. The lieutenant grinned. With pleasure, General. The arena transformed again, but this time Velthar could see the computer generating the scenario in real time. Random building layouts. Random hostile positions. Random civilian patterns. Nothing the soldiers could have rehearsed. Squad Delta, Scenario Random Alpha. Parameters classified. Resolve as you see fit. This time chaos emerged. The scenario included fire hazards, structural collapses, and hostile forces using civilians as shields. The soldiers couldn't predict anything, yet they adapted. When a building caught fire with civilians inside, 3 soldiers immediately broke off to evacuate while others maintained combat operations. When hostile forces tried to escape in a vehicle, a soldier shot out the tires with perfect accuracy while the vehicle was moving at high speed. When a civilian ran into the line of fire in panic, 2 soldiers dove to shield the hologram with their own bodies. Velthar watched a scenario that should have resulted in massive casualties end with complete success. The soldiers never stopped thinking, adjusting, creating solutions on the spot. How? Velthar asked, surprising himself with the question. We train for chaos, Taesung explained. Real combat is never predictable. We don't teach our soldiers to follow rigid plans. We teach them to think, adapt, and trust each other. Another squad entered the arena. This one demonstrated zero-gravity combat, using specialized suits and weapons designed for vacuum. They moved through a 3-dimensional battlefield with coordination that seemed impossible. No up or down, no solid ground, yet they fought as a coordinated unit. Corporal Minji's team showcased combat engineering. They built defensive positions from available materials in minutes. They disabled complex security systems. They created explosive charges from common items. One soldier hacked into the arena's computer system mid-scenario and turned hostile defenses against their owners. Creative thinking is our specialty, Minji said when her team finished. Humans are very good at making things work when they shouldn't. A larger force demonstrated company-level tactics. 200 soldiers working together, coordinating attacks across multiple objectives simultaneously. Velthar watched communication networks that should have been overwhelmed function perfectly. Leaders emerged naturally, soldiers following whoever had the best idea regardless of rank. During a short break, Velthar approached one of the squad members. Young male, maybe 25 cycles with sweat still dripping from his face. You performed adequately, Velthar said. The soldier smiled. Thank you, Ambassador. How long have you trained? Basic training was 6 months. Advanced combat training was another year. But I've been at Fortress Sejong for 3 years now. We train constantly. Why? The question seemed to confuse the soldier. Why do we train? Why do you dedicate yourself to such difficult preparation? Kalri soldiers follow orders because it is their function. Human soldiers choose this life. Why? The soldier thought for a moment. I have a sister back on Earth. She's a teacher, works with little kids. She's never had to think about war or death or any of this darkness. I do this so she doesn't have to. So she can live in a world where teaching children is possible. Emotional motivation, Velthar observed. Maybe, the soldier agreed. But that emotion makes me train harder, makes me willing to take the bullet if it means protecting others. I think that's strength, not weakness. General Taesung called Velthar back to the observation booth. One final demonstration. I've saved the most important for last. Below, a single soldier entered the arena. Female, smaller than the others, with quiet confidence in her movements. That's Lieutenant Hae Jin, Taesung said. She's our top operator. Watch carefully. The scenario activated. Multiple hostile forces, all advantaged positions. Zero support available. An impossible situation designed to show doctrine for fighting withdrawals and tactical retreats. Hae Jin didn't retreat. She moved through the arena like water, finding paths that shouldn't exist. Her shots were perfect, each one dropping a hostile before they could return fire. She used the environment creatively, collapsing structures to block approaches, setting traps from discarded equipment, even turning hostile weapons against their owners through some kind of technical manipulation. When the scenario ended, she had neutralized every threat without taking a single hit. Her psychological evaluation shows highest marks in creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking, Taesung said quietly. She also writes poetry in her spare time and volunteers at the Fortress School teaching combat basics to children of station personnel. She contains multitudes, Ambassador. All humans do. Velthar stood silently, watching Hae Jin exit the arena. She looked ordinary, not particularly large or imposing. Yet he had just witnessed her achieve what most species would consider impossible. You understand now? Taesung asked. Our chaos is not weakness. Our emotions are not failings. We fight not because we are violent, but because we love. We train not because we enjoy war, but because we refuse to let those we protect suffer it. I need time to process this, Velthar admitted. Of course, tomorrow we'll show you the specialized divisions. Tonight, rest. Think about what you've seen. Velthar returned to his quarters with his certainty shattered. Everything he believed about civilization and military effectiveness had been challenged. The humans were not uncivilized. They were differently civilized, perhaps even more effectively civilized. He tried to write his report but found himself deleting every attempt. How could he explain what he witnessed? How could he convey that human weakness was actually strength? Outside his window, Earth hung in space. The morning began with a message that surprised Velthar. General Taesung requested they meet for breakfast in the officers' mess. Not a formal briefing, breakfast, a meal together. When Velthar arrived, he found the general already seated with a plate of food and a cup of coffee. Another human sat across from him, a quiet man with gray at his temples and eyes that seemed to calculate everything. Ambassador Velthar, meet Commander Sang-woo. He leads our Special Forces Division. Sang-woo stood and offered the now familiar handshake. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His expression remained neutral, but something about him suggested deep competence. An honor, Sang-woo said simply. They ate together, which Velthar found less uncomfortable than expected. Taesung and Sang-woo talked about normal things. Supply requisitions, personnel rotations, the weather back on Earth. They included Velthar in the conversation naturally, asking about Kalri customs and life, showing genuine interest. Special Forces handles our impossible missions, Taesung explained eventually. The operations other species won't attempt. Define impossible, Velthar said. Sang-woo smiled slightly. Last year, a research station on Europa was taken by hostile forces. Deep underground facility, multiple layers of security, hostages scattered across 3 levels. The Galactic Council estimated rescue would require a full military assault with acceptable losses of 60% of hostages. What did you do? We got everyone out. 0 casualties except the hostiles who refused to surrender. After breakfast, they descended into a section of the fortress Velthar hadn't seen before. Deeper, more secure, with security protocols that rivaled Kalri military installations. The Special Forces training facility made the regular arena look simple. Here, soldiers trained in environments that seemed designed to kill them. Vacuum chambers, pressure chambers, toxic atmosphere chambers, rooms that simulated every hostile planet in the known galaxy. Special Forces operators must function anywhere, Sang-woo explained. If humans can survive there, we train for it. The first demonstration was zero gravity insertion. Velthar watched from an observation room as operators in full combat gear ejected from a simulated spacecraft into a tumbling space station. They had to match rotation, breach hull, and secure objectives, while hostile forces tried to stop them. The operators moved like dancers in the void, using small thruster packs with incredible precision. They cut through hull plating, entered simultaneously from multiple points, and neutralized threats within minutes. All in hard vacuum where one suit breach meant death. "We've lost 17 operators training for this," Sang-Woo said quietly. "Vacuum is unforgiving, but we keep training because the alternative is losing missions." Next was deep water insertion. An operator entered a chamber filled with liquid, under crushing pressure that would kill most species instantly. She wore specialized gear but still had to function in an environment that wanted to compress her body into nothing. "That's Lieutenant Bo-Ra," Sang-Woo said. "She holds the depth record. She's descended to pressures equivalent to 6,000 meters on Earth. Most species can't survive a tenth of that even with equipment." Bo-Ra completed her objective, retrieving a simulated data device from a hostile facility, and returned to the surface. When she removed her helmet, she was smiling. "How was it?" Sang-Woo asked through the intercom. "Cold," Bo-Ra replied, "and beautiful. I saw bioluminescent creatures that were amazing. Even in crushing depths and mortal danger, humans found beauty." Velthar couldn't comprehend it. The psychological operations demonstration disturbed Velthar more than physical capabilities. A team showed how they could infiltrate enemy organizations, gain trust, and extract information without violence. They demonstrated interrogation techniques that didn't require torture but still achieved complete intelligence gathering. "We understand psychology," Sang-Woo explained. "Human psychology and alien psychology. We know how to read people, to understand motivations, to predict behavior. Sometimes the best weapon is simply knowing what your enemy will do before they do it." In the afternoon, they visited the Research and Development Division. Dr. Ji-won greeted them, a female scientist with bright eyes and hands covered in chemical stains. "Welcome to where we make impossible things possible," she said cheerfully. The laboratory was organized chaos. Experiments in progress everywhere, prototypes being tested, simulations running on multiple screens. Ji-won led them through with obvious pride. "This is adaptive armor," she explained, showing them a suit that seemed ordinary. Then she activated it. The armor shifted color to match its background. Not perfectly, but enough to make the wearer difficult to track visually. "We studied cephalopods from Earth oceans," Ji-won continued. "Animals that change color naturally. We adapted the principle for combat applications." She showed them quantum communication systems that supposedly couldn't be jammed or intercepted. Biomedical enhancements that help soldiers heal faster and perform better without genetic modifications. Weapons that adjusted to different gravities and atmospheres automatically. "Everything here breaks some rule of conventional thinking," Ji-won said. "That's how we operate. We ask what if instead of why not." The most impressive technology was a combat AI integration system. Not artificial intelligence controlling soldiers, but AI assisting human decision-making in real time. The human remained in command, but with computational support that enhanced their natural abilities. The Galactic Council banned combat AIs because they lack moral judgment, Velthar observed. "Exactly," Ji-won agreed. "So we kept the human in charge. The AI suggests, the human decides. It combines computational power with human ethics and creativity. Best of both approaches." Late afternoon brought them to Major Yuna's Strategic Command Center. She was younger than Velthar expected for such responsibility, perhaps 35 cycles, with sharp eyes and a confident bearing. "Strategy is chess, played in 4 dimensions," Yuna explained, pulling up holographic displays. "Space, time, resources, and psychology." She showed him simulations where human forces defeated superior numbers through unconventional tactics. In one scenario, a small human fleet faced a force 3 times its size. Instead of retreating or fighting directly, the human commander used gravitational slingshots around planets. Unpredictable timing, and false retreat patterns to divide and defeat the enemy, piece by piece. We studied human military history extensively, Una said. Battles where smaller forces defeated larger ones through creativity and audacity. Thermopylae, Cannae, Agincourt, Midway. We learned that numbers don't guarantee victory. She pulled up another simulation. This was deemed impossible by the Council's military strategists. 3 different hostile fleets converging on a human colony. Defense was considered impossible. Evacuation was the recommended strategy. What did you do? We defended successfully. 0 civilian casualties. 2 hostile fleets destroyed. 3rd fled. We used the gravity of their own convergence against them, timing our counterattacks to make their forces interfere with each other. We turned their coordination into confusion. Velthar studied the simulation replay. It was brilliant, dangerous and brilliant. The human commander had risked everything on precise timing and enemy predictability. One mistake would have meant total defeat. You gambled, Velthar said. We calculated, Una corrected. Humans are good at risk assessment. We understand probability. More importantly, we understand that sometimes the only way to win is to attempt the improbable. That evening, General Tae-sung invited Velthar to his private office. The space was comfortable but not luxurious. Shelves held books, actual paper books. A window showed Earth below. You've seen our capabilities, Tae-sung said, pouring 2 glasses of water. What do you think? Velthar accepted the water but didn't drink immediately. I think I was wrong about humanity. In what way? I believed your emotions made you weak. Your individualism made you chaotic. Your cultural diversity made you fragmented. I see now these qualities make you stronger. Tae-sung nodded slowly. It took us a long time to understand that ourselves. Humans fought each other for thousands of years before we learned to fight together. How did you achieve unity? We didn't completely. We still argue. We still disagree. But we learned that diversity of thought produces better solutions. That emotional investment makes us fight harder. That individual creativity achieves what collective conformity cannot. Velthar finally drank the water. I must ask, why did you allow me to insult you initially? Why not demonstrate your strength from the beginning? Tae-sung smiled. Because strength without compassion is tyranny. We wanted you to see our humanity before our power. We wanted you to understand that we use force to protect life, not to dominate it. Most species would have demanded immediate respect. Most species haven't learned what we learned through centuries of warfare. That true strength is choosing not to use violence when you could. That real power is protecting others rather than proving superiority. They sat in comfortable silence, looking at Earth through the window. Velthar thought about everything he'd seen. The impossible missions, the creative solutions, the technology that broke rules, the strategies that defied logic. Tomorrow is your final day here, Tae-sung said eventually. We'll show you our fleet operations and deep space capabilities. The observation deck was Velthar's favorite place in Fortress Sejong. He had discovered it during his first night and returned each evening since. The massive windows provided an unobstructed view of Earth, that blue sphere that somehow represented everything the humans fought to protect. General Tae-sung found him there on the final evening. The general carried 2 cups of coffee, offering one to Velthar. I've never consumed this beverage, Velthar said. Try it. Fair warning, it's bitter. Velthar took a small sip. The liquid was indeed bitter, but also complex. Rich, strangely pleasant. It grows on you, he admitted. They stood together, watching Earth rotate slowly below them. Cities sparkled on the night side. Clouds swirled across the day side. Velthar had learned the names now. Asia, Europe, Africa, America, continents where billions of humans lived, unaware of the fortress that protected them. Tell me about human wars, Velthar said suddenly. Tae-sung was quiet for a long moment. Which ones? We've had so many. The worst ones. The ones that taught you the most. Tae-sung drank his coffee, his expression distant. The 20th century was brutal. 2 world wars, weapons that could destroy cities in single strikes. We killed millions of our own species over ideology, resources, and hatred. We developed nuclear weapons capable of ending all life on Earth. Yet you survived. Barely. We came close to extinction several times. During the Cold War, automated systems nearly launched nuclear strikes multiple times over false alerts. Human operators stopped them. People who chose peace when the computers said to choose war. Emotions saved you. Yes, fear, love, hope. A Soviet officer named Petrov refused to follow protocol and prevented nuclear war. An American president and Soviet premier chose dialogue over destruction. Scientists warned about nuclear winter. Artists created works showing the horror of annihilation. Emotions, ambassador. They kept us alive when logic said we were doomed. Velthar thought about this. The Kalri never had such conflicts. We evolved unified. Single species. Single culture. Single purpose. That's a blessing, Taesung said. But it also means you never learned certain lessons. We learned that differences can coexist. That former enemies can become friends. That the capacity for violence must be balanced with the wisdom to avoid it. Is that why you value art, music, all those seemingly wasteful activities? They're not wasteful. They're essential. They remind us what we're fighting for. A soldier who knows beauty will fight harder to protect it. A warrior who understands love will better understand what's worth dying for. They drank their coffee in silence. Below, a storm system moved across the Pacific Ocean, lightning flickering in the clouds. I was wrong about humanity, Velthar said quietly. Completely wrong. You are not uncivilized. You are civilization's truest expression. That's kind of you to say. It's accurate. Civilization is not about order. It's about protecting the ability to live, to grow, to create. Your military exists to protect life, not to control it. That is the highest form of civilization. Taesung started to respond, but an alarm interrupted him. Red lights flashed throughout the observation deck. A voice came through the station's communication system. Priority alert. Priority alert. Distress signal received from Kalri Colony Velkesh. Multiple hostile vessels attacking. Civilian population under threat. Galactic Council forces 3 days away. Velthar felt his blood run cold.
Velkesh.
His brother lived there with his family. How many civilians? Taesung asked, already moving toward the command center. Approximately 50,000, the voice responded. The colony has minimal defenses. They're requesting immediate assistance. Velthar followed Taesung, his mind racing. 3 days. The colony couldn't hold for 3 days against a coordinated attack. His brother's children, everyone he knew from his home region. The command center exploded with activity when they entered. Officers called out information. Screens showed tactical data. Major Yuna stood at the center coordinating responses. What's our response time? Taesung demanded. We can reach Velkesh in 6 hours if we launch immediately, Yuna replied. But sir, we haven't received authorization from the council. Political protocols require approval before. Forget protocols. 50,000 people are dying. We respond now. Prepare the fleet. Sir, yes, sir. Velthar watched in amazement as the fortress transformed. Moments ago it was calm. Now it moved like a single organism preparing for war. Soldiers ran to stations. Ships began launch procedures. Equipment was loaded with practiced efficiency. General, you can't, Velthar said. This could create a political incident. Humans entering Kalri space without authorization. The council could see it as aggression. Taesung looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. Let them. I won't stand here safe while people die because of politics. That's not what we do. But the consequences will be handled later. Right now your people need help. That's all that matters. Captain Hana appeared, already in full combat gear. General, the strike fleet is ready. Waiting on your authorization to launch. Authorized. I'm coming with you. Sir, you don't need to. I'm coming. Ambassador Velthar, you can stay here in safety or come with us. Your choice. Velthar didn't hesitate. I'm coming. Those are my people. The strike fleet consisted of 12 human warships, smaller than Velthar expected but clearly built for speed. He rode in the command ship with Taesung and Hana, strapped into an acceleration seat as the vessel launched. The journey was the longest 6 hours of Velthar's life. Taesung and his officers worked constantly, planning the assault, running simulations, coordinating with other ships. Velthar listened to their conversations and understood why humanity was so effective. They didn't follow a rigid plan. They created multiple contingencies. They discussed ideas freely regardless of rank. A young lieutenant suggested a flanking maneuver that Major Yuna incorporated immediately. Commander Sangwoo proposed using the colony's gas giant for gravitational assist to approach undetected. Everyone contributed. These hostiles are using obsolete tactics, Yuna observed. They're bombarding from orbit with no ground forces yet. Probably pirates looking for ransom. Can we negotiate? Velthar asked. Possibly. But we'll prepare for combat. Hope for peace, prepare for war. Old human saying. When they arrived at Velkesh, the situation was worse than reported. 5 hostile ships surrounded the colony, firing on the defensive shields. The shields were failing. Another hour, maybe less, before the colony was exposed. This is General Tae Sung of the human military. Hostile vessels, cease fire immediately and withdraw. This is your only warning. The response was mockery. Laughter across the communication channels. Humans, you have no authority here. Leave or we'll add your ships to our target list. Tae Sung's expression didn't change. Hana, weapons free. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for decades. The human fleet didn't attack conventionally. They used the gas giant's gravity to accelerate to impossible speeds. Approaching the hostile vessels from angles their sensors couldn't track, they fired precise shots that disabled weapon systems without destroying the ships. In less than 10 minutes, all 5 hostile vessels were dead in space, their weapons offline, their crews unharmed but helpless. This is your second warning, Tae Sung said calmly. Surrender or we start targeting life support. They surrendered. Velthar watched as human ships descended to the colony. Medical teams immediately began treating wounded. Engineers repaired damaged infrastructure. Soldiers established security. They worked with Kalri civilians like they were protecting their own people. Tae Sung personally oversaw the operation, refusing to rest until every injured person received treatment. He walked through the damaged sections talking to survivors, offering comfort. Velthar found his brother in a medical bay where a human doctor was treating his injuries. His brother's children clung to him, scared but alive. Velthar, his brother said weakly, the humans saved us. They came when no one else would. A human medic, young female with kind eyes, bandaged his brother's arm. You're going to be fine. Rest now. Velthar knelt beside his brother. For the first time in his life, he felt his emotional control slip. Wetness formed in his eyes. Tears, the humans called them. His species had the physiological capability but never used it. Never allowed emotion to show. Now he wept. For the fear he'd felt. For the gratitude he felt. For the lives saved by these strange emotional creatures who'd risked everything for people who weren't even their own. Later, standing in the colony's main hall, Velthar found Tae Sung coordinating the handoff to Galactic Council forces who had finally arrived. You could face charges for this, Velthar said. Unauthorized military action. Violation of territorial protocols. I know. They could remove you from command. I know. Was it worth it? Tae Sung looked at the Kalri families reuniting. Children hugging parents, the injured being cared for, the dead being honored. Yes, every time. If they want my command for saving lives, they can have it. Some things matter more than career. Velthar understood then, truly understood what made humans special. They were warriors who hated war, soldiers who valued peace, fighters who protected life. I need to return to the council, Velthar said. I have a report to file. What will you tell them? The truth.